guys, Absolute Duelist here, coming at you with a new One Piece video, and in today's One Piece video, we are going to be going over the top 5 decks, in my personal opinion, going into the new April 1st format. So it's going to be very interesting seeing how OP10 is going to play out into this new format, especially seeing as the OCG didn't have this because of they had Gecko Moria, Ice Age, Jinbei, and also Kingdom Come for yellow, black, and also Doflamingo. So it's very interesting to see where this format will most likely go, but I believe I have a good idea of the decks that are going to be considered the best decks, and also kind of going to show the most representation going forward into this format. So without further ado, we're going to go into the top 5 decks in my personal opinion, and we're going to go ahead and talk about them a bit and give you guys an idea of why I think they're going to be the best decks going into this upcoming format. So without further ado, let's begin with number 5, Red Green Smoker. So Red Green Smoker is actually a really good deck coming out of OP10. This deck is a deck that can essentially play with up to 13 Don at times, thanks to the leader ability being able to restand 2 Don, and also Green Smoker being able to restand 1 Don, while also having Banish. This deck has a lot of utility going into it, being a red deck so it can have access to all the rush cards, while also being a green deck being able to utilize cards like Hody Jones, 8-cost Kid to be able to prevent your opponent from hitting you, having access to tons of blockers, having access to stuff like Carrot to go ahead and keep things rested so they can't restand, and also having access into cards like Radical Beam, the new event that goes ahead and counters for 3k and decreases opponent's character by 2k, and it has a lot of protection options. Now, this deck will most likely be turned into an 8-cost Kid deck because of, I believe that is the best variant of the deck, because it got new protection cards such as the new 2k counter Tashigi with Smoker on it, because she can go ahead and rest herself, and whenever a character would be removed, well, a green character, you go ahead and rest her, and she goes ahead and protects that character. So if they try to red rock away the Kid, then, well, you just go ahead and rest the Tashigi. So you have more than just the Rosinante for protection now, you also have her. And along those lines, you also have access to a lot of other cards, as I said, such as Hody Jones to go ahead and get that aggression factor in when you're going to go for the win. You have access to the Smoker as well, which is the new one, which I said can restand 1 Don because of it's also very strong just because it has Banish written on it. And also Smoker on your opponent's turn goes ahead and gives 1k power to all of your characters with Punk Hazard or Navy on them. So generally this is going to be a very good deck going forward. It has great matchups against any low ceiling deck where it has very small characters, because if they have the small characters, how are they going to get over the Kid? It's going to be very strong in my personal opinion going forward, and it will have weak matchups, don't get me wrong. Its weakest matchups should be against Blackbeard, because you can go ahead and drop the 10 beard, and then the 10 beard goes ahead and negates the Kid, and then you just go ahead and start swinging. And it will also be kind of weak against Shanks, because the Shanks is a very top heavy deck where it does really well in the late game, so it will have weaknesses against that. But if you're going up against something like Doflamingo, if you're going up against something like Zoro, if you're going up against anything with like weaker characters, then this deck is going to be very strong and will be very great going forward. So definitely RG Smoker is a great pick for this format and is, in my opinion, the 5th best deck. At number 4, I have Zoro. Now, Zoro has always been one of those kind of decks that does pop its head in and out of formats at times, and really has always been kind of good. It's a very simple deck to play and a very easy deck to play for those, because it is just an aggressive deck that boosts your characters and swings at life. This has always been kind of the case and point for Zoro why it's good, because it does a lot of just swinging and aggression, and has always been kind of lackluster because, well, Black was always around. Now that Black has kind of been taken out with Ice Age and Gecko Moria being taken out back, it does actually get a lot more boost into this format, with the fact that the animal build is still really strong. Having the fact that you can go ahead and play the 3-cost Tony Chopper to swing or on play characters from your deck and build up a board very easily, this deck is still super strong, and yes, does have weaknesses against RG Smoker and against stuff like Doflamingo if you do go against it, and anything that can really remove board. But the deck in the format we're going into is more focused about getting to the late game and using the late late game cards to kind of survive and win the game in grind situations. So I personally think Zoro being that aggressive deck where you're playing the choppers, where you're playing these new ST21 cards that give you the ability to go ahead and rush with like the new 5-cost Luffy that goes ahead and puts a Don on the Zoro when it attacks, making the Luffy then a 7k and the Zoro a 6k of course. It has a lot of power going forward, with the animal build just being very strong, very aggressive, and can swarm the board very easily. Having access into new cards such as the new ST21 cards, which I mentioned a second ago, with the new Rush Luffy and other cards along those lines, this deck in my personal opinion is going to be very strong, only really having bad matchups if you see a stray dopey player still in the format, or if you go up against a red-green smoker player, because if they can go ahead and establish the 8-cost kid, it's just going to be a very hard time for you. And even if still, you do have outs to it, because you can still play cards like the 8-cost dragon to go ahead and give you more advantage in those areas as well. The red Zoro is going to be very strong going forward, and it's definitely a great consideration for the 4th spot in my opinion. It's a very easy deck to play, it's very linear, it's very aggressive, and it can go ahead and swarm the board like no other deck can. So definitely, in my opinion, one of the better decks going into this format, and definitely the 4th best in my personal opinion. At number 3, I have a deck that I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with, but in my opinion, I still think it's actually very strong. And this deck is Doflamingo. Yes, Blue Doflamingo, in my opinion, is still one of the best decks in the game, and I'm saying this for a couple of reasons. First reason being, yeah, it only lost Jinbei. It only lost Jinbei, guys. Like, Jinbei was not the most important card in the deck. The deck still has a lot of cards that are going to be strong, are going to be great, and can still put down a lot of aggression. The leader ability hasn't changed. You can still play off the top. It's still great to go ahead and establish board and keep your hand size high, so you still have a lot of protection and a lot of counter while being able to swarm the board, which is very good. And also, it's not really lost any of its control potential. Like, the reason why Doflamingo was very strong was because it had all the control potential it could currently need, being able to control the board, bounce your characters, and leave you in a state where you can't really play. It had a great swarm mechanic where you go ahead and play the Jinbei, go ahead and play cards off the top of your deck, and just win the game very easily through aggression and control, which was always very nice. And it always has a high hand size because, well, it's not playing anything from hand 9 times out of 10, it's always playing cards off the top of the deck. These were always the factors that made Doflamingo the best deck, but losing the Jinbei didn't really take away all of those factors. You still have the ability to play off top, which gives you a lot of free advantage to swarm the board. You still have the ability to control the board with 4-cost Lore, Jozu, and either Red Rock or Gravity Blade, whichever you want to play. You still have the ability to play a lot of these good cards that the deck has, and still have the ability to swarm the board very easily, in my personal opinion, while having a high amount of cards in hand. Like, generally, the deck hasn't lost anything intense, and the deck is still, in my personal opinion, very strong, which is why I'm putting it at number 3. Like, the deck still has everything it once had. It only lost, realistically, one thing. Like, let's be honest, it lost Jinbei. Jinbei was not the best card in the deck. The best card in the deck is its removal potential, because it still has the ability to swarm with characters for free off the top of your deck. You still have the ability to stack your deck with cards like Perona, Buggy, Boa Hancock. You still have all of these things that you had before, which still makes the deck really strong, and it really is still a great control deck, being able to remove things with the 4-cost Lore, with the Jozu, with the Red Rock. Like, you haven't lost anything realistically outside of a bit of swarming potential and aggression with the Jinbei being banned. You still have everything else. You still have great cards that you can play. You can replace the 4-cost Jinbei for the 4-cost Gecko Moria that goes ahead and is a vanilla and has 6k power to give you more aggression in the deck as well, with more power to go ahead and hit your opponent for bigger attacks. And you still have everything else the deck has, so I don't think it's going to be a bad choice to play. It has great matchups against Shanks and also Blackbeard too, in my personal opinion. Being able to swing 7 on your first turn, put a 6k body down so you can swing and get through the leader's passive ability against Shanks is great. Against Blackbeard, they're discarding cards every single turn just to go ahead and stop you from having your own play abilities. You won't care about that because you go ahead and get them to like no life. They play the 10-cost Blackbeard, and then you go ahead and drop Perfume to go ahead and swing through the blockers anyway. anyway while they have a low hand size, so you win the game there. It has great matchups against Zoro because of, well, you're going to bounce their characters to the hand and you're going to say, nope, you can't deal with that. And anything that realistically deals with it is still going to have a hard time, because you're going to try and control the board, you're going to swarm the board, and you're also going to have just a great time with high hand advantage, in my personal opinion. The deck is still very, very good. The deck is still strong, in my personal opinion. It does have its weaknesses, of course, if you don't see the ability to stack, or if you lose those random gambles you have to do with the leader ability at times. It is a bit of a sticky situation, and you can low roll on times as well, so it does take away some things at times where it's not the perfect deck, but nonetheless, the deck is still very, very strong. Great control potential, great swarm potential, and always having a high hand size really does help. So, yeah, number 3, I say, is Doflamingo. Blue Doflamingo, great deck still, in my personal opinion. And number 2, I have a deck that I think everybody can realistically agree with why it's number 2, or even number 1 in some cases, and that is Blackbeard. Now, Blackbeard is an obvious one. It's a deck that is just really, really powerful for the fact of its built-in ability to take away all on-play abilities. And that, in my personal opinion, is just absolutely insane in a lot of matchups. This deck on its own can deal with a ton of decks. It deals with the Usopp matchup very, very easily. It deals with the entire Doflamingo's deck on play abilities, even though it's not a great hindrance for the deck at times because it just swarms the board and kills the Blackbeard player anyway. It can go ahead and deal with all the on-play abilities in Zoro, and it can deal with any deck that really does focus on on-play abilities, be it Reiju, be it anything. Like any deck that relies on play, this deck will handle, and is really one of the reasons why it is one of the best decks. On top of that though, it has removal to boot. So think about it this way: I'm playing black and I can take away all on-play abilities, but on top of that I have a ton of removal cards, be it Bingo Pistol from CP0, be it Black Hole, be it the new Liberation that can remove 2 characters at 6 and a 4 cost respectively. I've got the new Shiryu, the 4 cost, that can go ahead and remove 3 cost or lower characters. This deck has a ton of removal, has a lot of ability to just take away everything you hold dear with the on-play still, and also on top of all of that, the deck thrives in the late game thanks to the 10 cost Blackbeard being a 12k blocker that also takes away your leader's ability, takes away a character's ability, and says that character cannot attack as well. Blackbeard, in my opinion, is just still one of the best decks going into the game. It's definitely number 2, or if not number 1 in a lot of people's eyes. My eyes, it's number 2 just because I think one deck is way better than it in a lot of situations. But nonetheless, it's a very, very strong deck, very powerful deck. It does have bad matchups as well against like Doflamingo, sadly, and also can have some issues against the Smoker matchup if they can get that aggression, or does have problems against other aggressive decks, like if the Zoro players or if the Shanks players can just rush them down in the early game. It is a bit of a problem for them, but nonetheless, if they can keep their hand advantage, if they can keep the trash just high, and can go ahead and establish a board where they have like multiple Jesus Burgesses with a ton of trash, and also just keep controlling the board with like Van Augers and the Finger Pistols and everything along those lines, it's just going to give them a very, very big lead, and Blackbeard will just take it in the late game with the aggression and also the grind that they play with. So yeah, Blackbeard is definitely number 2. It's a very, very simple deck to play. You remove the board, you control the game, you take your opponent's abilities away, and also you play 10 cost Blackbeard to block your opponent's big swings and just go from there. Like, there's really not anything else to say about it. It's a very easy deck to play, and once you know the deck, it's also kind of easy to play around, but you need to kind of know what your opponent has and kind of be smart about it too. So be careful against the Blackbeard players. They are very strong, and it is definitely number 2. At number 1, I think, is a deck that nobody will realistically dispute being the best deck going forward, and that is Red Shanks. Red Shanks is an obvious pick for number 1 for so many reasons. This deck is great going first or second. This deck has great early and late game. This deck has removal and control and tons of protection. Shanks has everything you could want in a deck and more, and overall it's just insane. Like, let's look at the control side of the deck. The deck has cards like Silver's Rayleigh to go ahead and decrease 2 characters and remove a 3k power or less character. It has has cards like Ben Beckman to go ahead and trash, not KO, trash a character with 6k or less power. It's got cards like Lucky Roo that go ahead and block and then KO any 6k power or less character that was originally 6k power or less. If your opponent puts a Don on that character, you can still remove the character. Like, this deck has great control with that, being able to control the board while also protecting. It's insane with that. The deck has great aggression, being able to go ahead and aggress your opponent down with cards like 10 cost Shanks, 10 cost Roger, 8 cost Dragon. You've got 5 cost Luffy for more aggression, and you've even got stuff for the early game, such as the 3 cost Sanji to go ahead and swing 6k every single turn, and if that dies, you draw a card. Like, the deck has so many 2ks out the wazoo. You got Otama, you got the blocker Tony Chopper, you've got Lime Juices, you've got every red 2k under the sun. There's really no bad options here. And then on top of all of that, you also have the leader's ability to go ahead and decrease any character your opponent has by 1k power every single turn, giving you effectively a free 1k counter as well. Like, everything about this deck is great. It's got great control, aggression, can go first or second. Like, there's really no issues with this deck. You can play the control variant as well, where you play the 5 cost Marco to have more removal. You can play more aggressive variants where you play like the Rush Zoros as well, which is really, really strong. You can play stuff like Yasop, which boosts your leader's power for a turn. Like, this deck overall is really, really strong, and any variant you play is gonna be strong. Like, I've seen people playing like pure rush builds where they play only like the 5 cost Luffy's, 3 cost Zoros, 4 cost Zoro to go ahead and give it as much rush as possible and just run your opponent down before they can even play the game. And in my opinion, that's just absolutely insane. There are so many good variants of Shanks to play this format, which really does make me think it is the best deck going forward right now. It does obviously have some bad matchups, like if you can rush them down maybe with like a red Zoro deck, which can kind of counteract that. If you can go ahead and maybe stop them from using like their high cost characters, then red green Smoker might have a chance. Like, Blackbeard does slow them down as well with the ability to trash cards and take away the Ben Beckman or the Rayleighs on play, but then they do just have very bad outcomes with the Blackbeard as well, because of, well, they're dropping their 10 cost Shanks and then decreasing your blocker by 1k, meaning you have to have the 2k to counter on top of it. Like, there are a lot of things that Shanks just has and Shanks does that really does give it just a great time and makes it the best deck in the format, in my personal opinion. So yeah, in my personal opinion, Shanks is definitely number 1 with great control, can go first or second, has the aggression on top of all of that, and can even play events. Like, you can still play Red Hawk to go ahead and have removal for the opponent's turn. You can go ahead and play Divine Departure to go ahead and have a 3k counter or an 8k power or less removal. Like, you have a lot of options in this deck and a lot of ways to play it that really does just give it the best deck of the format, in my personal opinion, status. So yeah, guys, those are, in my personal opinion, the top 5 decks going forward. Now obviously you guys can play what you want. If you don't like any of these decks, there are definitely other decks out there you can play. Like, you could play the new Usopp deck, which is really nice. It just lost a lot of its matchups that were very, very strong against it. You could play Reiju, for instance. It did get a couple of new cards with the new Searcher Sanji and a blocker. Like, you can play any deck that you want, but in my personal opinion, these are the top 5 decks, in my opinion, for this format, and I hope you did enjoy the video in that regard. So guys, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more One Piece content. These are the top 5 decks, in my personal opinion, for April 1st OP10 format, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Absolute Duelist signing out. Later all.